Hello everyone, I'm Ryan, and this is Erin. Welcome back to Counselors and Coffee, woo woo, where our coffee is brought to you by BYOC because we just brought our own today. Save some money. And if you're tuning in, this is a new playlist called I Can't Even. We're going to talk about burnout, compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, and what to do about it. But today we're going to focus on burnout and the agency. Stay tuned. Yay!
Yeah!
Counselors and Coffee!
Right! Yes!
Hey, welcome back. As I said earlier, this is a brand new playlist about kind of burnout, but specifically within the community mental health agency. I think it's a different beast because I think if you're private practice, you kind of have more autonomy over what you can and can't do, when you're going to stop working. Community mental health, though, it's completely different.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just nodding because I'm very new to this field. I'm like, yeah, he's right. Yeah, I graduated a year ago, and I've been at the job for 8 months or so.
Oh, yeah, it's almost a year.
Yeah.
But I think it's a different perspective, a different learning curve. Because the thing is with agencies, there's changes always happening, especially with contracts, and there's governmental stuff, reimbursements, and Medicaid and Medicare. There's a lot of moving pieces where we currently work, which is none of your business.
None, yeah.
None, yeah.
With our agency, it's so huge that there are so many different programs, so it can be easy to get lost in all of the different things that we do, and just kind of what your identity is within your program, and as your own self as a practitioner, but then also within the agency. You know, there's like this whole rebranding and evaluating of your identity as an agency and all that, and so everything is just kind of up in the air, which is fine and good, and it's this necessary growth process.
If it's a big agency versus a small agency, I think the bigger the agency is, it's like it's a huge ship. It takes a lot longer to turn it around and takes a lot more energy to kind of get it changed, which I think could lead to burnout, because it's almost like you're being told things are going to get better, but the bigger it is, the longer it's going to take. Right.
And it feels like a dangling carrot, and so you have this hope that you're kind of waiting out for, and these little kind of bonus things that you feel like are coming your way for putting up with some of the changes, but then they're not here yet. So it's also like, well, in the meantime, I still have to worry about my student loans, and I still have to worry about the paycheck and all of those things. So it's good to know that those things are coming, and it's also, I would like them now. We've been talking a lot about training implemented, and how important training is to help you feel more competent in what you're doing. I think that there's a lot of value to being thrown into something and learning as you go and just kind of hitting the ground running. But it's also important to have structure and containment and the agency, people who are more experienced and seasoned in these things, telling you this is what you should be learning, and these are the areas where you need to be competent. And you know, it keeps you excited. Like doing those trainings keeps you excited. Yeah, and I think especially in a program such as ours, where we're doing so many different things.
Assertive community treatment.
There's not a lot we don't do. I mean, all of those things, we provide such good support, and I believe that that's how all community mental health, honestly, should operate, is just being able to offer all of those things. But especially as a new professional in this field, I need someone telling me where I can say no. And I have definitely felt the fatigue, the burnout, whatever you want to call it, however you want to categorize it. I've definitely felt that so far because, again, lack of training and all the changes, and structure issues have made it difficult to know what my boundaries are,
Yeah.
and what they're allowed to be.
With community mental, I keep saying mental. Mental. Community mental is you have to wear a lot of hats. And when we talk about burnout, usually talk about self-care. However, but there's also the big, gigantic agency part, which we can't take that out of the equation.
Right.
And especially if you need to wear this small hat of medications, this small hat of court, know how court procedures work, this big hat of counseling, case management piece, learning to navigate food stamps and all those different offices.
But I mean, I think, this definitely relates to what we talked about in the first episode with all the self-care stuff, that you hear the top-down message a lot that you need to be taking care of yourself in order to prevent burnout, and that is true. You need to feel into your own boundaries, and sometimes maybe you need to get burned out in order to understand what your boundaries are, and that's okay too. I mean, it sucks, but it's okay.
It's okay to be tired.
Too. But at the same time, that is kind of the function of having more experienced people around you, and the supervision and all of that to help you really understand when you can take a break, and again, when you can just say no to things.
This whole format of Counselors and Coffee is important because it gives us a conversation to have about this without it becoming just venting, which there's a place for venting, but
of course.
the things that we've talked about in the office, because our team talks a ton, I've noticed that when you would share about kind of burnout type things, your language was different. I haven't told you this yet, but it's less of they this, they that, they this, and it's more I need such and such. I don't feel qualified. And I feel that's a healthy way of going about it because, the I statements, the I language, I need this. You're taking accountability for what you're, sounds strong, but falling short on.
Sure.
And I need these things to do well. So just knowing what you don't know, or knowing what you're missing and what you need, is a huge piece in avoiding the burnout because you have awareness of what's going on with you.
See, because burnout, of course, leads to turnover and needing to rehire people and train people and through orientation. And whereas continued trainings, like things that make us more competent and better and more efficient in our jobs, like basic therapeutic tools, motivational interviewing, DBT, CBT, EMDR, all those acronyms. Those things help us, and you mentioned this the other day, not just feel competent, but like excited to come back to work and use them and inspired. And I think those are the things that help us remember why we're doing the work and what's fascinating about it and what is really promising about having those tools.
Yeah.
And then I think that knowing that your agency is investing in you makes you more loyal. Feeling like there are these other things that the agency is doing to recognize that I'm someone who wants to grow and eventually be able to teach other newer people.
Yeah.
That makes me feel valued, and that makes me want to stay. And when I don't have those things, it has the opposite effect.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of agencies can slip.
Dump truck.
I think
I'll leave that in. It's hilarious. So, how this, maybe it's even before burnout, when you're kind of stepping into that realm of burnout, it's like exhausted emotions.
Yes.
When that sets in, it's almost like you can't trust yourself. You don't feel safe when you're actually in a safe place. You lash out at people who are actually trying to take care of you. You don't listen when someone's providing what you need, because our emotions is just so exhausted or so worn out that we feel like we're always in danger. We have to defend ourselves and protect ourselves. So when that sets in, I'm not listening to supervision or redirection I need, and then that starts going into just the complaining. These things are terrible. I'm a victim of circumstances. And when that sets in, I was always told frustration is basically defined as feeling an inability to affect a situation. I can see a domino reaction of really getting negative.
Yeah. In our conversations recently, you've talked you've wanted to focus on the emotions that you feel. Like if I go to court and I am feeling incompetent, I'm feeling embarrassed and I'm feeling nervous and ashamed, or, you know, maybe I didn't prepare enough, or I'm pointing the finger back at myself. And I think that was when you mentioned, well, what you just said, that was a little bit of an epiphany for me. Sorry, my mind is going all over the place.
You're fine.
Well, and this is kind of what happens, and this is the zone I've been living in for a long time, where I'm overwhelmed. That what just happened to me right there is exactly what's been happening so much, because I've been exhausted, you know. And I think it applies to every area of my life. I love that, being able to trust what it is that I'm feeling, trust that I feel safe, because I'm so overwhelmed with all of the feelings and all of the responsibilities. And this work, I think, changes your perspective on life to a certain extent, or that's been my experience. It's really important to be able to trust the systems around you, that they're going to hold you. But it would also be nice to know that the agency is saying, here's this training, here's the expectation, here's all these things. Just that containment, I think, helps people feel really safe. And I'm getting to a point, personally, professionally, where I think I need more skills in order to take clients deeper. You know, there are certain traumas that I'd like to know that I have some evidence-based stuff behind that would make me feel more confident in leading them through. It's like, we work with OCD and we work with intense trauma and all sorts of things, and so I want to know that I can hold people in that process. If
there was an agency who said, hey, we want to know what's going on with you when you don't feel equipped, like the deep stuff, what would you say that is?
Honestly, at this point, maybe like a little bit of panic, a lot of anxiety around that, and then just knowing that it's going to take up so much of my time, especially when there's all these productivity messages and things like that. Feeling like not good enough, why does everybody else seem to know this better than I do? And then
like imposter syndrome almost?
Definitely, yeah. Yes. That for me leads to resentment. That, I mean, I can take accountability and I can take initiative with a lot of things. And just with the massive amount of stuff that we have to do, I can't train myself on everything. Yeah.
It's important that you said that, because it makes sense that resentment would set in. I don't know where to go. You guys have been here before. I haven't. How come you're not helping me? And I can see why the resentment piece would set in. So for me, it's like the first couple of times I went to court, I knew there was a judge. I knew there was lawyers. I had no idea what the protocol was. But when the lawyer's looking at you, hey, will you speak to this? And then the judge says, hey, sir, what's your role here? Yeah. The first time I had to speak, I'm therapy case worker, social worker. Yes. Like, wait, no, I'm not social. Well, what are you? I'm here for emotional support. And I was so embarrassed. I felt like an idiot. And like, oh yeah, they're gonna listen to what I say to advocate for this client when I can't even friggin' speak up there.
Yeah.
For me, I think some very simple practical things that would have helped me was, even if it's not a certification, hey, we're gonna have a training. How do you go to court? I think if the agency had a few general extra trainings, someone who's really good at this, they found a way to excel in your time management. Do a training on that. Run out the room and show us how you did what you do great. How do you engage with the agency if you're feeling burnout? I think we mentioned a bunch of it, but I think at its core, this is one step. Being vulnerable, like what can we do on our end is have a discussion. It's okay to be humble and say, I don't have it figured out. I am feeling overwhelmed. I am feeling burdened. Because then you can you give voice to some of that resentment and emotion so that it doesn't keep becoming toxic. You can actually address it for what it is. I know it can be expensive to do CAT trainings and EMDR, this sort of stuff, but having someone in your agency who is brilliant at navigating courts, just spring for a lunch and people can come down and learn about that. Or someone who can advocate for young clinicians. Free trainings it doesn't cost anything, of just experts who have learned really well how to navigate whatever you feel inadequate in.
Yeah, and even if the trainings cost something, I would bet it's still less expensive than high turnover.
All right.
Anything else? I just feel like we always have such big conversations.
I know, right? Okay, on that, I'm just going to need to finish up my coffee and let my brain come back together from being exploded.
Yep.
Thanks,
Brian.
Toodles, counselors and coffee. Whistle. Oh, cheers.